I got a pretty big announcement for you guys today. This is the Jumper T16, and I have liked this radio pretty much since I first saw it. You can go watch my original review of the Jumper T16. It's linked down below in the video description if you want to hear all the reasons why this is a good radio. But at the time that I reviewed that radio, I said I was not yet ready to call it my daily driver, and there were a few things about it that gave me pause. Well, I'm here to tell you that almost every single one of the things about it that gave me pause have been resolved. Let's talk about what those are. One of the things I didn't like about the original Jumper T16 was that it had its MultiProtocol module in the JR module bay, and that meant that you could not run Crossfire. Get out of there, you. It meant that you couldn't run Crossfire in the radio without swapping the modules out. I'm happy to say Jumper has resolved that. They have released a drop-in internal MultiProtocol module that you can easily install inside the radio. No soldering, no fuss, no muss. I've got a video about how to do that, and it might even be out already. I'll link it down in the video description if it's out. They have fixed that. So now I can have this radio with the internal module bound to my FrSky, whatever else, Spectrum, Jumper, or FlySky, you name it, and I can have my good old Crossfire module in here, and I never have to swap the modules out. Fantastic. Another concern that I had about this radio was the gimbals. The original Jumper T16 didn't come with Hall effect gimbals, and I feel like Hall effect gimbals improve the durability of the gimbals over potentiometers. Yes, you can make very, very good potentiometer gimbals, but I think Hall effect gimbals will last longer. Jumper has released the T16 Pro, which has Hall effect gimbals. That's 2 out of 3. Another concern was that the OpenTX project refused to support the Jumper T16 hardware, and I'm not even going to get into the reasons why they felt that was necessary and who was right and who was wrong. The real concern was that you guys, if you bought the T16 radio, you would have to rely on Jumper to release firmware updates for the radio. And sometimes manufacturers are not so reliable. Sometimes they just drop support for a product and you're left high and dry. Nirvana, I'm kind of looking at you, Underground FPV and FlySky. So I am really happy to announce that if you actually look on GitHub right now, there is a merge that has been approved, and that means that OpenTX is going to support the Jumper T16. I'm not sure if it's in OpenTX 2.3.0 or 2.3.1, but whatever the differences were between Jumper and OpenTX, they seem to have been resolved. And that means that no longer will Jumper have to build their own firmwares, but the OpenTX project will integrate. And for anyone who is concerned about, oh, is this cloning? Is this open source conflict? What should I do? Mommy, daddy, who's right? Stop fighting. Now you don't have to feel that way. Jumper TX and OpenTX seem to be on friendly terms. Whenever a new radio like this comes out, there's always a question in my mind of just how enthusiastically I want to support it. Because as good as the radio is, the one that I've got, how good is it going to be when they make 1,000 of them and sell them? Did I just happen to get a good one? Are there quality control issues? And will the radio continue to be good over time? In order to answer that question, I have stayed in touch with some vendors who sell the Jumper T16, and I've asked them, hey, are you guys getting a lot of DOA units? Are you getting a lot of returns? And I'm happy to say that those vendors have told me that basically everything is fine, that this is a solid radio with an acceptably low defect rate. And so I feel like I can recommend it also based on sort of the build quality. That brings us to an uncomfortable topic, and that is vendors who sell the radio. Where are they? There is a list of vendors who are selling this radio down in the video description. That list isn't as complete as I could get it, but there are some small local vendors who may be in your country that I don't have listed. And it really is just small local vendors that are selling this radio. And the reason for that is FrSky. FrSky used its position as a market leader to pressure vendors into not carrying the Jumper T16. I'm going to be really careful about exactly what I say about what FrSky said and did, because I don't want to say something inaccurate that gets me in trouble. But the gist of it is, the very general gist of it is that FrSky threatened to not let vendors sell FrSky products anymore if vendors sold Jumper products. And vendors caved. FrSky is too popular and too profitable for vendors to give them up. So when you go to look at certain vendors and you find, where's the Jumper T16? It's not there. That's not a coincidence. These vendors would love to carry this great radio. They just are too scared of losing their FrSky relationship. And I don't, as much as you like to say, hey guys, stand up for yourselves. They have to pay the bills too. I'm not mad at them about it. FrSky makes them a lot of freaking money and nobody can afford to throw that away. But it does mean that when you do find a vendor who's carrying this radio, know that they had the guts to stand up to FrSky and say, okay, take a hike or whatever, and thank them for that with your business. Well, that brings us to the very last thing that I asked for in my review of the Jumper T16, and I didn't get it yet, and that is internal charging. Internal charging. Right now, if you want to charge this, you got to open it up and you got to use these 18650s. And 18650s are great. I like 18650s, but I don't like taking my batteries out of the radio to charge them. I want to be able to just plug in USB, or ideally it would be just plug in USB and charge that way. But Jumper hasn't given me that yet, but I feel like 2 out of 3 is not bad. In fact, I didn't even ask them. I didn't even think it was possible to ask. I'll get that battery bay on later. I didn't even think it was possible to ask for OpenTX integration. I'm shocked that that happened. I'm thrilled that that happened. And so we're just going to call that 3 out of 3. Jumper has gone so far to demonstrate that they are not just out to make a quick buck by selling a cheap product. They have taken feedback from the community and implemented it, and somehow they managed to patch things up with the OpenTX team, who was as mad at them as anybody. So I'm going to go for it and just say Jumper is just a good guy here. Jumper deserves your support, and I'm going to work on making the Jumper T16 my daily driver radio. That's right. I'm going to move away from the Taranis X9D toward this radio. I'm not going to let the fact that it doesn't have internal charging hold me back. And I want you guys to think about, as you're thinking about what your next radio should be, whether it should be one of the new FrSky radios with access or something like the Jumper T16 specifically. And the reason for that is that FrSky is moving to close off its ecosystem and restrict what you can do with your radio. For example, FrSky is actively working to lock out Crossfire and take away Crossfire compatibility. Yes, you can still get Crossfire working on a new FrSky Access radio, but you have to jump through some hoops. Remember the inverter mod with the QX7? That was the first time FrSky demonstrated that they were willing to break their own radios to prevent you from using third-party stuff that they didn't want. The new light module form factor, FrSky is trying to lock out these products. And that is not going to stop. D8 mode is gone. You want to run D8 mode on your radio? Nope. You got to buy an external module to run D8 mode with your tiny whoops and stuff. Too bad, so sad. And all of that gets you the new access protocol, which has some new interesting features. But at the end of the day, I would hesitate to go with a FrSky radio unless you just know that you're committed to the FrSky ecosystem. Radios like the X9 Lite or the X Lite Pro are good radios, and the access protocol does bring things to the table. But I just have such a sour taste in my mouth whenever I think about them, because it's like, yeah, you get the candy, but also they're trying to just shut everybody else out. And that's not what this hobby is about. This hobby is not about closing off your products so nobody else can get in. This hobby is about open source and openness. And Jumper is carrying that banner right now better than FrSky. And this radio is $160, $150. And if you look at what you can get in a FrSky radio for that price, or $200, $250, I think you'll find that this is a pretty compelling bargain. That's going to do it for this video. There are links to places you can buy the Jumper T16 down in the video description, but search for a local vendor who carries it, or order it from, I think Alibaba is one of the only. Man, when you get Banggood to stop carrying a product, you know you got clout. Way to go, FrSky. You are unquestionably the 500-pound gorilla in the room. So if you want this radio, you may have to jump through a hoop or two to get it. But there you go. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy flying.